Come September, actually September 19th, the IAF fighter jet squadron will come down to a paltry 29, in line with what a small country like Pakistan has, and much below than what China has, over 60 of them. The reason why the IAF will come down to 29 is because the last of the two remaining MiG-21 squadrons are being number plated. Means the curtains are finally going down on an aircraft which has dominated two-thirds of the Indian Air Force's 93-year-old history. It was in 1963 that India first inducted the MiG-21. The MiG-21s were inducted in Chandigarh, marking a turning point in the IAF's inventory as the first supersonic fighters of the Indian Air Force. The MiG-21, whose NATO reporting name is Fishbed, was designed as a supersonic jet interceptor aircraft by the Mikhail Gorbachev Design Bureau (OKB) of the erstwhile Soviet Union. The aircraft, which made its maiden flight on 16 June 1955, holds the record of being the most produced supersonic jet in aviation history. India alone has operated over 800 of them and has seen action in every single conflict since its induction into the Indian Air Force. Though slated for phasing out in the early 2000s, the MiG-21 continued to fly all these years. About 400 of these fighters have crashed and has claimed the lives of over 170 pilots. It even earned the nickname of Flying Coffin and was the basis of the 2006 super hit Rang De Basanti. People who've flown it swear by it. They love its handling, speed, and ability to climb, but also admit that it is a very unforgiving aircraft. However, if you ask me, I would say it is criminal to have flown this aircraft all these years. That is, from the early 2000 to now in 2025. The aircraft was slated to be phased out last year, but the government and the IAF kept it flying in the hope that the Tejas Mark 1As will start coming in. Government did not want the squadron strength to go down on paper below 30, less than what the IAF was in 1965 war. For the IAF, the number plating means all personnel and other infrastructure associated with the squadron goes away, and when it has to be revived, fresh approvals have to be taken. So they it, but thankfully are not waiting any further. Incidentally, the MiG-21 is the aircraft that led to India's love for the delta-winged aircraft. The Mirages and the indigenous Tejas are also delta-winged aircraft. The MiG-21 was the first successful Soviet aircraft combining fighter and interceptor characteristics in a single aircraft. It was a lightweight fighter achieving Mach 2 with a relatively low-powered afterburning turbojet. The MiG-21 has had a long production run from 1959 to 1985 and underwent updates and modifications thereafter in many countries, including India. The first single-engine MiG-21 aircraft came into the Indian Air Force in 1963, and since then, a total of 874 of them have been inducted, including various variants. The Soviet origin supersonic fighters had become the mainstay of the Indian Air Force over the years because of the sheer numbers, even as the force inducted more modern aircraft like the Mirages and others. The aircraft first underwent an upgrade in the 1970s, and the variant was known as the MiG-21 Bis. With the light combat aircraft Tejas nowhere in the horizon, the IAF decided to upgrade 125 of the MiG-21 Bis to the MiG-21 Bison in 2000, despite a spate of crashes in the 1990s that claimed lives of many pilots. India got the MiG-21s as a counter to Pakistan being given 12 F-104 Starfighter supersonic aircraft by the US. The Starfighter was the first supersonic aircraft on the subcontinent. In both the 1965 war and the 1971 war, the number 28 Squadron, the first MiG-21 squadron, and the MiG-21s played an important role in India's successes. During the 1965 Monsoon War, the squadron was central in conducting combat air patrol. The new MiG-21s were deployed to counter, in particular, the supersonic F-104 starfighters and the much regarded F-86 Sabre. It gave the F-104 a chase and scare. Number 28 Squadron's feedback from deploying the early MiG-21s in the 1965 war ensured that the Soviet Union added guns to subsequent variants since the original MiG-21s did not have one. The development had major ramifications during the 1971 war. The MiG-21s carried out successful steep dive bombing attacks on two Pakistani airfields of Tezgaon and Kurmitola during the 1971 war. They also played a major role in the attack on the governor's house in Dhaka. This led to the governor's resignation and hasted Pakistan's surrender. The MiG versus F-104 in 1971 was 5 versus 0. Of the 5 starfighters shot down, 3 were actually of the Jordanian Air Force. The 1971 was a greatest hour in the MiG-21's history. Aviation historian Anchit Gupta points out in his writings and on X that the MiG-21 F-13 Type 74 Fishpet C was the first in the Air Force. 6 of these were acquired in March 1963 and served till 1968. F, that is operated, and 13 denotes the K-13 air-to-air missiles it carried. They carried the serial number BC-816 to BC-821. Powered by the R-11 engine, pilot tube was below the engine intake, unlike subsequent types where it was on the top. The armament was the K-13 missile and 130mm cannon. Designed for intercepts, its short endurance, lack of radar, and poor single shot kill probability was a problem. In March 65, the IAF got the PF variant. 6 of these were acquired with the serial numbers BC-822 to BC-827. It had the R11 F2 300 engine for better endurance and R1L search radar. These changes came with a flow. It had to give up its cannons. Few T-76 were upgraded with R2L radar and R11 F2S 300 engine. This was to bring them in line with T-77 that was to become the main variant in service. Lack of an integral cannon was in sync with the gun versus missile debate of those times. In 1966, the Air Force took the first big step when it contracted for the MiG-21 FL Type 77 variant, FL denoting Forage Locard, meaning the afterburner and radar. 38 aircraft were manufactured in USSR and another 197 were manufactured by HAL between 1966 and 1973. Type 77 improved on the Type 76, a new R2L radar, IFF antenna, radar warning, and larger fuel capacity. An attachable gun pack, the GP9 consisting of a twin-barrel 23mm gun on the center point. Type 77 also heralded the era of using the MiG-21 for air-to-ground role. 500 kg bombs were delivered at the Tilpat range in 1967, as Anchit said. For the bombing role in 1971, they earned the nickname Runway Busters. Anchit says the Type 77 initially had 2 hardpoints under the wings for air-to-air missiles and 1 centerline for the drop tank or the GP9 gun pod. Sometime in 80s, it was modified to have 4 wing hardpoints for both air-to-air missiles and bombs. This greatly enhanced the usability. Type 77 would serve the IAF for 47 years across 11 combat squadrons, the longest of any variants, ruling the eastern skies, and was extensively used in the training post 1986. It was also the first instance of mass production by the HAL. In 1975, IAF acquired the MiG-21 Bis Type 75 Fishpet N variant. Key improvement was the R-25 engine, better avionics, gun sight, and blind flying instrumentation. 70 acquired in flyaway conditions and 220 were produced by HAL between 78 to 85, the last MiG-21 manufactured by HAL. In 2001, the IAF upgraded the Bis to the Bison for BVR missiles, CAV 500 TV bombs, and much larger view cockpit, and helmet mounted sighting system, among others. MiG-21s were initially designed by the Soviets to go high, that is, climb quickly and shoot down American spy planes. India has used several MiG aircraft like the MiG-23, the 27, 25, the 21, and now the 29, all types. Now, there are many air chiefs who've come from the MiG-21 squadrons. The first was Air Chief Marshal Dilbagh Singh, who was the IAF chief from 1981 to the 1984. He was one of the earliest IAF officers to fly the MiG-21. He was instrumental in the induction and operationalization of the MiG-21s in the Air Force. The second chief was the Air Chief Marshal S.K. Mehra, who was a chief from 1988 to 1991. He flew several aircraft, including the MiG-21s, and commanded frontline squadrons equipped with the MiG-21s. The third was Air Chief Marshal S. Krishnaswamy, who was the Air Force chief from 2001 to 2004. He was a MiG-21 pilot during the earlier part of his career. And of course, you also have the Air Chief Marshal R.K.S. Bhaduria, who was the Air Force chief from 2019 to 2021. He flew MiG-21 early in his career. He was a test pilot and highly experienced with multiple aircraft types, including the MiG-21 variants. Incidentally, the first lot of MiG-21, Russia did not have trainers. It was redesigned as a trainer but was unforgiving. The MiG-21 was a challenging aircraft to fly, especially for rookies transitioning from subsonic trainers. The two-seater trainer versions were therefore essential for advanced jet training, conversion training for new pilots joining the MiG-21 squadrons, and instrument flying practice and combat simulations. There were actually two types of trainers. One was the MiG-21U, initially the two-seater variant introduced in the late 1960s. It had dual controls with no radar and was primarily used for basic conversion and handling. Then came the MiG-21UN. It was most advanced and widely used trainer version based on the MiG-21 BIS airframe with better avionics, improved ejection seats, and navigation system. Some had limited weapon carrying capability for live firing exercise. It was still used well into the 2000s for conversion training and even operational flying. For The Print, this is Snehesh Alex Philip. Do subscribe to The Print's YouTube channel for more such videos.